Welcome, everyone, to Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney. Our goal here is to give you some actionable takeaways that will help you lead your teams. Thanks for joining us on this leadership journey. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our summer version of Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney. And for the summer, if you haven't been listening, you are in for a treat because what we're doing is quick little snippets for our summer beach read version of Stepping Into Your Leadership, where we have two experts. Today, it's Tom Armstrong and Erika Petrelli who are here with us. And I'm going to give them a scenario of a difficult situation or a difficult employee or a difficult boss today. We'll see. And we'll kind of go back and forth about how they would handle those situations. So you at home can follow along and see who you agree with, what you would do differently, and imagine ways to help you at work. Then we're going to do a lightning speed round with as many questions about leadership that we can get from these two in 2 minutes. Okay, you guys ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's our first situation. Okay, this is core team dynamics. Okay, so your team has been struggling with poor dynamics lately. Cliques are forming and some members are feeling excluded from important decisions and activities. This has led to a lack of cooperation and decreased productivity. So the question is, how do you address these dynamics and foster a more inclusive or collaborative environment for your team? What do? Do you avoid it? Do you ignore it? Do you just hope it gets better?
Just say, I'm sure it'll be fine.
So this just isn't one person. Something's going on.
The whole team's falling to pieces.
Yeah. So Erika, I'm going to start with you and then we'll go to Tom. So Erika, what do you think?
Well, I think this probably anyone listening probably is going, because they've probably had some version of this experience in their life, because that's normal stages in the life of a team moment. So I think the first mistake is for any leader to be stunned or bothered that this is happening. This is normal human dynamics. So depending on how long this team has been together, it could just be that they finally, they've gotten through the honeymoon phase of everyone being on their best behavior and trying to show their best self forward, which is what usually happens at the start of a team formation. And then they're sort of settling into their real selves, and always conflicts crop up at that moment. Or it could be that they've been together for a long time and they're just sort of tired of the same old. And so you get a little of that disgruntled, I like you better than you're better than that person. And so I think the first thing is just to say, this isn't normal. This doesn't mean there's an inherent problem with the team. There could be. I'm not saying there isn't, but you shouldn't jump to the conclusion. So I think some authentic team building, and authentic is the key word here, because when I hear this scenario, if you throw in some, let's do a trust fall and everything will be fine kind of team building, you're just going to exacerbate the problem. But genuine time together, reconnecting and sharing each other's commonalities and strengths is probably where I'd start.
Yeah, that's probably easier for you, though, than most people, Erika. So I'm going to go to Tom, and then I'm going to come back to you with some questions about specifically what that means for people out there. Okay. So Tom, what do you want to add on or disagree with Erika?
Honestly, what Erika said is beautiful. I mean, and I know this is the problem with Erika going first, but so a couple of add-ons. I do think, yeah, absolutely. This idea of if you're grieving, it helps to know there's 5 stages. It helps to know what they are. It doesn't necessarily change, but it changed necessarily the fact that you're going to go through them. But it's good to know that this is normal. Knowing that is really important. So it's good for the leader in the situation to be able to recognize and be able to do it. Erika's saying of this happens. This too shall pass, hopefully. And then how can I design things to let it pass? And also communicating that to your team is important. I think it's good to be really transparent with folks and saying, hey, everybody, it's normal when we're doing, when teams are working on projects, for sometimes there to be cliques and I don't know the term that you use, but times when certain silos will form within a group, and there's benefits to that because you do see cohesion happening with those members, and that's a really positive thing. So you don't want to shame it or bring it, because that's good. But what we also want to do though is be able to, I'm going to be actively working on ways to connect the silos as well to make sure that we don't get isolated in that way. Because to be the most effective team we can be, we'll go into the next phase, which is where we're all, you know what I mean? Knowing those phases is key. And then an actual tactic that I would use in this kind of thing, also to Erika's point, is that anything, the team building activities, quote unquote, the things that I'm going to do with them that are going to help them see the ways that they're similar. Oftentimes it can be as simple as, I And it's one of the reasons I love reading fiction is like, I'll read a fictional character and I'll go, I thought I was the only one that felt that way. And it's the power of stories, right? So when you hear your colleagues tell a story about their life, it could be even just their trip to the office or something that happened to them that morning. And you're like, oh, I'm not the only one. Creating those kinds of activities where people can communicate in that sort of way. You know, when we do this with our corporate partners and you'll hear someone say, no one knows this about me, but I, skied a lot in my youth. And someone else says, oh yeah, I've done 40 ski lifts. I've done 40 ski resorts in my life. Those kinds of things help to, whereas they didn't know anything about each other before. Now they do, they're more likely to talk. It creates those bridges. So all the little things you could do to create bridges between people is going to be really key.
Right. Erika, I'm going to let you add on to
I
what
do
you
want
meant.
to add on. It is a yes and, because something you said, Tom is exactly right in the way he described the connection. I think it's really important that it is outside of the work responsibilities. So the three of us, love to use some version of, tell us about the first concert you ever went to or your most favorite music experience. Tell us a funny animal story an animal encounter that you've had, something like that, where people start talking about things that are funny, that have nothing to do with work. And if possible, if budget, space, time allows, if possible, to be outside of your day-to-day work environment. So, because then you're not thinking of, this is the desk where I hate my life, or that's the office of the person who doesn't understand me. If you're in some kind of net neutral space, having these stories and laughing together, that does so much more than I think oftentimes what people will do, and with good intention, we've done it ourselves, to say, because people will say in these kind of situations, they just don't understand what I have to do. They don't understand how full my plate is. There's always in this moment, right? They don't understand. And the problem with that is, if you surveyed the whole team, most likely every single one would have a version of a they don't understand. So there is actually no they that doesn't understand, because it's everyone feels like people are misunderstanding them. And so if we stay in the work situation and we try to say, well, help us understand your job, nobody's listening, because everyone feels like they're the misunderstood one.
Yep.
So you're really actually spinning your wheels, because it's not actually getting to the source, which is just let that go for the first part and just talk about that time you found yourself in the tiger encampment at the Bronx Zoo or whatever. Like, tell the story and then build from there, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody has a tiger encampment story.
Everybody's gotten stuck with the tigers at the Bronx Zoo,
This one always surprises me, because I think you're exactly right. When people feel like they're not part of the decisions or they're not part of certain activities, they have this feeling that everybody else is. Yeah. When oftentimes that is aired and shared, then people go, oh my God, I didn't know Erika felt that way.
Yeah.
I feel that way too. Maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's just the way that it's going right now. Also, for the boss, it makes you think, is there a reason why they're not involved? Or are you just missing it? Like, I've missed it before, where I didn't think that people cared about having a voice in something, and they did. But I think having the guts to actively talk about it specifically in the room is really key, because presumably you got wind of this somehow. If you know that, you can know that the team dynamics are off, but somebody has told you that they're upset about being excluded from something.
Yeah.
So you've somehow gotten wind of this from somebody on your team. And so it might be interesting to have a conversation. The other way is, if you don't know and you just see the cliques, which is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Is I would have my next meeting, I would divide them up and have seating arrangements, so that you put seats, you actively divide up the cliques. So you have little nameplates, and you put people in groups, and you specifically have group activities in small groups to get to what Tom was saying, but you mix them up, because people naturally go to their cliques. We all do. I do too, when you put me in one, right? Safety.
I have a word of caution, but Tatiana, do you want to add something?
I did. I wanted to add an activity that, and a little different, because this one is work related, in that in the next meeting, I would have employees write out, like, this is my big project I'm working on right now, where are areas I'm struggling, and then kind of almost have like a gallery walk where they walk around and they share with each other. And then, like, what suggestions do you have? Because I think sometimes what happens is that people don't know what's happening, and also don't remember that they can rely on their teammates for suggestions or helps. Because sometimes the areas of the suggestions people come up with are really great. I remember a meeting where we did this, where we had a social worker, and not that the situation was the same, where they felt like they weren't communicating. It's just, I wanted to share the story to highlight it. So we had a social worker teaming up with a program manager, And what her issue was is that she was hiring all of these students who did not have their IDs. They couldn't get their paperwork, they couldn't get their hiring paperwork together because they didn't have all of this information. And so she was paired with the social worker, and he suggested to her, like, oh, there's resources for people who lose all of that stuff in fires, like the Red Cross or whatever, and they can help them start to get that paperwork again. And I don't think that would have been an issue that she would have talked to him about, because what resources would he have necessarily, or that problem isn't his. But he came up with a great solution, and then it kind of just made her think about some other things in a bigger sense to solve that problem.
And I think what you're getting at is a good one, that it doesn't have to be that you, the boss, aren't providing information. It might be with each other. So that's a really good point. Like, can you create an environment where each other can share more about what's happening and how to get information?
Yeah.
Christine, there's one other thing that I think is really important, and you do this all the time. It's that you got to tell your team why you're doing the things you're doing.
Yeah.
And have data behind it. Because for half of the team, if you're doing these kinds of warm-ups, these kinds of team building activities with them, a lot of times people feel in the back of their heads, I could be working right now. I could be working on my tasks. Why was it so pandering? I'm not a child. Like, this isn't school. But if they know about, like, for example, Project Aristotle and, from Google and the research they did on psychological safety in teams, now it makes them more effective. So framing it is everything.
Yeah,
I'm going to
good point.
explain to the team the value added to your performance by doing this activity we're doing. It's not just because I read that we should do a warm up.
Yeah.
And then also asking them questions. How did you feel when you came in versus how do you feel right now? Do you feel more connected to each other? I do. And that's important for us to now move forward. Like, always kind of like saying the meta to your team, I think, as much as you can, where appropriate, is important.
That's great.
I just wanted to, so the cautionary tale I wanted to throw in, because in this instance, it sounds like there's multiple things happening in the sort of moment of strife in the team. The cautionary tale for the supervisor is to not, so if one person comes to you to complain and say this person is doing that, or that group of people is doing this, the mistake that oftentimes a leader might do is to say, oh, this is the complaint I got, so this is what's happening. So I'm going to say, clearly that person is doing that, or that group of people is doing that, where that's just one voice sharing their one perspective. And usually in situations like this, it's not that cut and dry. It's not that one person or group is right and the other is wrong. If you then went and asked 3 other people, you'd probably get 3 very different perspectives.
So true.
So the cautionary tale is don't just listen to the first complaining voice and take it as gospel. Take that first complaining voice as a clue that it's time to get curious and dig in, right?
Yeah, ask questions. Because when people say, like, everybody's getting into cliques, I say, well, can you tell me specifically who? It's like, well, there's that one person.
Yeah.
It's
that guy over there, but I think that I'm missing out on something. So just the reminder to get curious, not declarative, I guess, at the start.
I wanted to tell you, I was in Haverford, Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago, and with a bunch of CEOs from the Philadelphia area. And one of them, we were going around doing like good whip arounds, like those conversations that Tom was saying, where you ask a question that helps build team dynamics and so forth. And everyone just whips around with one answer. And I ask them sometimes for ones that they use all the time that work with their groups. And this one cracked me up. I had to write it down because I knew that you two in particular would love this question. So everybody out there, this may not be for you or your meeting, but it's for Erika and Tom.
Excellent.
He said that he asked this question of, if you woke up in the back of a police car, who would be sitting next to you and what 3 words would they say?
Oh my God.
Love that question.
Right?
Yeah,
oh my God. I was wishing that we could just stop and not do any of the things I had on my agenda, but do that.
That's an outstanding question.
All right. Speaking of questions, let's go to a lightning round. Are you ready? We're going to see as many questions as we can get done. Here we go. You ready?
Yep.
All right. What book has had the greatest impact on your leadership style? Tom, don't give me the same book you said last time.
So I can give you a different book, Christine.
Okay.
Because it actually is true. When I was in my early 20s and read Tao Te Ching, that had a huge impact on the way I thought. I didn't know I was reading about leadership, but I apply stuff from there all the time, my whole, ever since.
So I had the same kind of thinking, but this will illustrate the differences between me and Tom. I thought of 2 children's books. Harold and the Purple Crayon and Scaredy Squirrel. Because again, I think the thing that you asked is so good, and Tom went to the same thing, which is you don't have to read a book about leadership to learn everything you need to know about leadership.
Yeah.
And in terms of impacting style, those 2 children's books. So I recommend anyone who's struggling to stroll through the children's section of a bookstore.
I love it.
Nice.
Okay. What's one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring leaders? Erika?
Give yourself grace. Leadership doesn't happen overnight.
Tom?
Yeah, it's okay not to know, and it's not always your job to know.
Yeah. Okay. Tom, how do you prioritize tasks during a busy day?
I sit down. First of all, if I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about something, I just write it down, get it out of my brain so I can sleep again. And then I'll create a list. I prioritize, I look at them and like, what's the one thing that I have to get done today? And it'll still be a good day if nothing else gets done. That's that I put up there in that category. There's a couple more. And then the 3, I find that really useful.
Great. Erika?
I usually first start with the do the worst first. I'm a do the worst first kind of girl, because otherwise it looms over my whole entire day. So whatever the thing I'm dreading or feel like is going to be hard, I tackle that thing straight away. And then after that, fast is fun. So the tasks I can get through fast, because then I feel like, look at me getting stuff done.
Yeah.
I love it. Wow. I've learned 2 new things from you, Erika, that use worst is first and fast is fun. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. That was all we got through 3 though. That's pretty good for this duo. Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back next week with another jam-packed summer version of Stepping Into Your Leadership. Thanks everybody for listening. I'd like to give a special shout out to our podcast producer, Richard Francisco. Check out our notes for any details. And if you get anything out of this, please follow us. And if you enjoy it, please take a moment to rate us or write a comment. It will mean the world to us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you just can't get enough, follow me on TikTok and check out tlpnyc.com/podcast for more information.